Welcome to this essential course. Today, we begin a journey that, at first glance, might seem unusual for those training in land transport planning and management. Many of you have arrived here thinking your work will be limited to moving vehicles, managing fleets, or designing routes. However, I want us to understand from this very first meeting that literature is not an aesthetic accessory or a pastime for leisure time. On the contrary, it is a precision tool, an essential cognitive foundation that will allow you to manage social complexity, understand the human needs behind the data, and make decisions with a much broader perspective. To understand why we are here, we must look back. The history of how this has been taught in American universities is very revealing. Quite some time ago, in the early 19th century, training focused on rhetoric and eloquence. It was considered essential for a professional to master language in order to lead and manage infrastructure. Over the years, this approach evolved toward building a national identity, where literature served to define the values of society. It was then that institutions began to integrate texts from their own culture into their core programs. This was a critical turning point for transportation because planning ceased to be solely a matter of physical engineering, of bridges and tracks, and came to require the ability to read the social and cultural landscape that this infrastructure was meant to serve. Later, in the 1970s, a crisis emerged in traditional teaching methods. The chronological study of literary history began to be questioned, and an approach arose that treated the work as an object that could be analyzed in its internal parts. This was brilliant for the field of management. If a student learns to deconstruct a novel to understand how it is built, they gain the necessary skill to deconstruct a complex logistics contract or government regulation, enabling them to identify operational and ethical implications that others might overlook. Currently, the sector in the United States faces a truly critical juncture. Although billions of dollars have been injected through recent infrastructure legislation, the data reveals a significant skills gap. Many graduates are proficient in technical software but struggle to craft persuasive narratives for funding requests or to negotiate with communities impacted by logistics projects. Therefore, the reintroduction of the analytical discipline we practice here aims to train professionals capable of handling both the raw data of the supply chain and the human stories that shape transportation policy in this century. Literature, as a simulator of ethical experiences, allows us to develop a special capacity for facing real-world dilemmas. Imagine you are managing a supply chain where you must choose between maximum profitability and safety or social equity. Having analyzed moral dilemmas in fiction, you will be much better prepared to recognize responsibilities and make informed decisions under pressure. Now, let's get down to brass tacks. How does this apply to your day-to-day work? Take, for example, the interpretation of federal regulations. You'll encounter highly complex codes. These texts aren't immutable mathematical formulas. They're linguistic constructions that often contain ambiguities. Literal training allows you to identify the intent of the law's author, analyze the tone, and anticipate how different people might interpret the same clause. This saves your companies from costly litigation and operational delays. Let's also consider public participation. Many technically flawless projects fail because planners don't know how to connect with people. Studying the literature equips them with the ability to use the art of storytelling to transform traffic statistics into narratives about improving quality of life. When you explain the benefits of a bike lane, not just through numbers, but by connecting with the experiences of parents or local business owners, you achieve the necessary consensus to carry out the project. The same applies to writing grant proposals. Planning relies heavily on competing for public funds. Here, rhetoric is vital. It's not just about presenting logistical efficiency data, but about balancing credibility, data, and the community's social needs, creating a compelling proposal that resonates with those who decide how resources are allocated. Even in the design of logistics systems, studying narrative structure helps visualize the flow of goods from origin to final delivery, allowing you to identify points where the story breaks down, whether due to delays or communication failures. By analyzing a report of persistent delays as if it were a plot hole in a story, you can find the culprit, be it a supplier or weather conditions, and resolve the issue. To conclude today's lesson, I want you to take away one clear idea. The ultimate purpose of this content is your professional transformation. In a job market where purely technical tasks are being displaced by automation and technology, what remains your differentiating factor is the ability to interpret context, negotiate meanings, and lead with empathy. You are here to become agents of change. Don't settle for simply knowing how to move a vehicle from one point to another. Strive to understand for whom and why you are designing that mobility. Today's literature has provided you with the necessary lenses to see complexity where others only see traffic.